All right, let's jump into the next only five list that we already know we are going to. I don't think claws out. I don't think we're not going to
Nah,
argue. I think there's. I think it all revolves around one person. Um,
it's fine.
but this list
I know who you're
was
talking about too. I know who you don't like, so it's
for
fine.
sure. I'll talk about it.
All right.
This list was great because was nice to like dive in of like all the different Spider-Mans that are out there and like
Mhm.
all the different versions. This top five list is the top five Peter Parker / Spider-Man. That's comics, video games, movies, TV show. Um, like I said earlier, like if we were just doing the best Spider-Man ever, after seeing the Across the Spider-Verse today, it would be difficult not to have him in the top five because I just really enjoy the new Miles Morales.
Yep.
But this is just Peter Parker and
Mhm.
Spider-Man. So I'm going to start with my honorable mentions before I
Mhm.
jump in my top five. First honorable mention, Chris Pine.
Nice.
Very, very, very short-lived
Mhm.
Spider-Man,
He's
and
the
it was very
all-American guy.
simple. But he was like the exact original classic Spider-Man vibes. Like they did a
Mhm.
great job of. He was barely in the movie as a character, but then his character very much like was an overarching like factor of a lot of the movie and the city and Miles Morales and how he did his stuff. I just really like Chris Pine. I think like they could totally do a spin-off like Chris Pine movie or short in the Spider-Verse like world. And I would like that. I would be totally fine with going and watching more of him just doing like basic normal Spider-Man stuff.
Mhm.
My second honorable mention, Tom Holland. Great. I like Spider-Man. I like him. I, I like him because he's a
Clearly not.
younger. I like him because he is he's like teenage version of Tom Holland. But here is why Tom Holland is not in the top five, or at least not yet, because he has only been like the actual Peter Parker Spider-Man that we all know and love for the last 10 minutes of the last movie, where they take everything away, they wipe everybody's mind, and now you've
Well,
got classics.
I
Hey,
disagree.
hey,
Disagree.
okay, we'll disagree when you get to your list. They He finally gets his classic blue and red at the end. He finally loses everyone. Nobody knows who he is. He's poor. He's for like the first time ever actually in New York City. Shocking to have Spider-Man swinging around New York. And yes, I know Queens is New York, but he still does zero Spider-Manning in any of those movies. The first movie, they're in Washington, D.C. Basically, it felt
They're in
like
Washington D.C. for like 15 minutes of that movie.
for all of those movies, it was how cool would it be if we did Spider-Man in a different in Washington D.C. or in Europe or in space? Like that's all cool, but like you basically are doing like older version Avengers version of Spider-Man at the beginning. It's kind of like how they did Batman versus Superman, where like Superman and Batman hate each other the first time they meet, which the reason why that storyline is so important and seminal is because they have had a career of being best friends and teammates, and then when they're 45 they come back and they fight because one puts their foot down in the sand. That like there's a whole bunch of stuff that is. I think Tom Holland could be one of the best Spider-Man if they give him an actual Spider-Man movie where he's doing Spider-Man things like swinging around New York City, fighting classic villains. I did like the most recent one because they had him fighting some classic villains, but they, of course, were having him fight classic villains from the other Spider-Man movies. Like, I'm not saying that he can't be, but in my strong opinion, he has yet to do a single actual Spider-Man movie where he's doing like comic book Spider-Man things. The things that he does that I think are comic book accurate is the one he's like a space case airhead teenager who can't keep up with doing the things that he's supposed to do balancing lots of stuff. They did a really good job with that. I don't like that he gets his Spider-Man costume from Tony Stark. His first costume is it's an Iron Man suit that's painted like Spider-Man. Like all that stuff, just for me, I am a classic Spider-Man. I like the
You're still on your honorable
story.
mentions. Will you get going?
Sorry. I know that's where this whole
You already shushed me, so I'm going to shut up.
I didn't shush you.
You did. You shushed me.
I just meant I knew that you were going to immediately jump in because I know your number one is Tom Holland.
It's
Tom
not.
Holland is not the number one Spider-Man.
It's not number one. I don't have him at number one.
I do like Tom Holland. I like Teenage Spider-Man, but he's not my top 5. I'll stop there. And all you Marvel recency bias Avengers is the greatest movie. Kevin Feige goggles. You're all wrong. Number 5. This episode was going to be a lot shorter, and now I've made it a lot longer.
Your honorable mentions 12 minutes.
Number 5. Well, I really needed to have that talk. I've been holding that on my chest and my shoulders for years, and I finally got to.
I don't even feel like you saw the end of Homecoming. Like the Vulture's not a classic Spider-Man villain. Like he wasn't like doing it in sweatshirt. He didn't have a Spider-Man suit.
He's had 5 fucking movies, and he's fought one of his own actual Spider-Man villains.
Mysterio.
And the Vulture, I also will say they did Mysterio much better than he was in the cartoons. They made him a lot cooler than he was in the other ones. I know you're trying to think right now of all the other main characters that he fought.
No, I'm good.
Okay, here we go. We'll keep going. I know your number 1 or number 2 is Tom Holland, or he's both. Number 5, Josh Keaton. There was 2 seasons of the oh my God, I'm so flustered now. I can't even remember the name of the damn series. The 2008 Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon. I don't know if you watched these cartoons, but they were fucking awesome. A lot of people say that the Spectacular Spider-Man is like the most Spider-Man media there is. A lot of people have that ranked as like the number 1 animated Spider-Man ever. The opening music for that episode or that show was actually awesome too. But the Peter Parker in there, it's incredible. There's 2 seasons. They're like 13 episodes each, so you could hammer it out in literally like 2 days. If you like Spider-Man, if you like the original 1994 Spider-Man, you'll love it. Yeah, it's my number 5. Number 4, tough to say his name, but Yuri Lowenthal, the Spider-Man 2018 video game. I don't know if you played the Sony video game. I didn't shush you. You're allowed to talk, Howard.
No, I'm good. Carry on.
Okay, so this is how our episode is going to end. The PlayStation 4 video game, Sony Spider-Man, they came out with like a second DLC, and now they've just announced number 2 that's coming out, which I was going to mention in my 6 to midnight. The new Sony Spider-Man that's coming out. It's going to be like Grand Theft Auto 5. You can switch back between Miles Morales and Peter Parker at any moment. But he did an awesome job. He like really captured. It was like, it felt like playing Spider-Man 2 all over again, but brand new. And like the story was great. He was awesome. There's spoiler, I guess. Mary Jane ends up dying at the end, and like he just does a great job of horribly balancing 10 spinning plates at once, and like loses the people that he loves. And Yuri, just like his voice felt like Spider-Man. He does a great job with like kind of the nerdy, smart, techie. He works for Doc Ock, and like that's a big part of the whole game as the story's going on, because he's not bad guy Doc Ock yet, and he just does an awesome job. Okay, number 3, and I know I'm going to get barbecued for this one, but I do not care. Number 3, Andrew Garfield. I freaking loved that Spider-Man series. I know it gets a ton of bad, like a bad rap, but he, I think, was the best actor out of all of them. Like, he just did a great job of making you feel like, again, I've talked on like every episode about like carrying loss and grief and how you
Mm-hmm.
handle yourself and stuff like that. And that movie, he just does a fantastic job making you feel like he's carrying the grief on his shoulders with every decision he makes.
I agree.
Like, there's a scene where Aunt May, he's like struggling, he's trying to get his words out, and Aunt May, I can't remember the particular thing that she says, but it's like super powerful. It totally makes me tear up every time I see it. Um, it's just he does a really great job. I love that they didn't go the Mary Jane route in that series. They went the Gwen Stacy kind
Mm-hmm.
of love interest, and him and what's her name?
Emma Stone.
Emma Stone. Why was I thinking Rose? Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield have like electric chemistry on screen.
And it was because it was real.
For sure. For sure. But I loved like it was the classic Spider-Man going back and forth. Like,
yes.
I love you, but I can't be with you. I'm not going to be with you. The other side that I really liked about him is in the opening scene of the second movie, when he's chasing the freaking classic, armored car thing and he's trying to stop it, he's like throwing these little comic book quips in like every 5 seconds. And there's one point where he's sitting with his feet are hanging down on the driver's side window and he like pops his head down to like talk some shit and then get out of the way. Like, that felt like Spider-Man. That beginning of the second movie, that's my favorite on-screen Spider-Man costume. Google it, go look at it. I didn't really like his original costume, like the yellow eyes I thought were kind of weird. But in the second movie, I loved it. I really enjoyed him as Spider-Man. So I know everyone hates him as Spider-Man, but I thought he was great. And then top two. I actually don't have my number one very close. Number one is like light years ahead, but I could not put this top high at the list just based on kind of my upbringing. These movies were incredible. Tobey Maguire. I loved the movies. We were texting the other day about like it's a bummer that number 3 was such a bad. It was just such like a different direction from the original 2.
Yes.
But I think a lot of people don't look fondly on that whole trilogy as
because
much
the third
as
one
they
was so
would.
Bad.
Because the third one was so bad. So
yeah.
If the third one was better, or they just didn't make the third one, if they just did like Andrew Garfield style and just did the 2, I think people would look at that movie as those series as being awesome. I liked his like in number 1, he definitely feels like a dork who would never be athletic, who couldn't tie his own shoes, and then he turns into like this super jacked, like like you get the vibe of like if a nerd just got superpowers and all of a sudden was athletic, he still wouldn't know how to tie his shoes. Like, you still kind of get that vibe.
Yep.
They do an awesome job of like the swinging through the city Spider-Man, like going through New York. Number 2, obviously we've talked about, is one of my favorite comic book movies of all time.
Yep.
One of my top Marvel. His Spider-Man is great. My number 1 Spider-Man. This Spider-Man is Spider-Man. When you think of Spider-Man, when I think of Spider-Man, this is who I think of. Christopher Daniel Barnes, 1994 Spider-Man the Animated Series. This show was everything to me. I watched this show more than I watched Batman the Animated Series because it was on more. And because I think my parents maybe thought that Batman was a little bit more scary, because I watched this all the time. I can remember like I had a lot of cool action figures as a kid, but my favorite action figure was my McDonald's Spider-Man that I got in my Happy Meal, like just the classic cartoon Spider-Man toy. The guy, Christopher Daniel Barnes, his voice is like, it's kind of like, it's just, when I think of Spider-Man, his voice is who I think of for it. It like looking back on the show now, if you go back and watch it, it's kind of all over the place. I do appreciate that they kind of keep storylines going through, but like he just does it. He does a great job of being Peter Parker, of obviously being Spider-Man, balancing the I can't do all things at once. I never get the girl. He ends up marrying Mary Jane, but it feels like he's like never able to get things done or be places on time. But his like Spider-Man is cool. The battles are awesome, especially for how much censorship was on that show, where they weren't allowed to have like any fighting and like one punch an episode, like things that people don't really think about.
Right.
Or like guns. They did like space, like laser guns in that show. Not a lot of people remember because of censorship stuff. That show what was like the poster child for like finding ways to get around censorship. Mm-hmm. Anyways, love his Spider-Man. Like truly, he should voice Spider-Man in anything that's not live action, like for the rest of time, and I would be happy. He is my number one Spider-Man and Peter Parker. All right. Roast me. It's my 45-minute soapbox.
I'm not going to roast you. I'm not going to shush you. I'm not going to roast you.
I didn't mean to shush you.
You shushed me, and I'm offended.
Just wanted to talk about Tom Holland not being in the top 5. That's all.
It's fine. Yeah, your honorable mention was longer in your list. Listen, so when it comes to Spider-Man, like this is going to show our age difference, okay? Because I like 94. I wasn't watching Spider-Man the animated series.
Oh man,
I didn't watch it. I didn't watch a lot of Spider-Man cartoons, not until I was watching them with my kids, to be honest with you. So a lot of what I had to base mine around was movies. And so that's where the most of mine's going to come from. So
cool.
I had one TV show on here, and it's at number 5. And I had Drake Bell at number 5 because of Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, the TV series that was on Disney XD. It ran from 2012 to 2017, so I got to watch it with Reagan. I got to watch it with Des. You can watch it on Disney Plus. It's actually a really good show. It ties in with the Avengers shows, Hulk, Agents of Smash. Des and I used to watch that all the time. So whenever Spider-Man was on there, it was the ultimate version, the Drake Bell version of Spider-Man. So like that was.
I didn't realize that was Drake Bell.
It is, and Drake Bell's he's a skis.
That's what I was just about to say.
He's got some legal troubles. Apparently, he shouldn't be doing kid shows. But
he's very Ezra Miller.
Yeah. Well. Ezra Miller. I feel like there's hope for Ezra Miller because he's like he's doing some crazy stuff. He probably just needs help. Drake Bell needs to go to jail. Like that's
that's a fact. Yeah.
That's
anyways
a little too creepy. He's on the Army Hammer scale. That's where Drake Bell's at.
He's eating people. That show was like the Spectacular Spider-Man. They basically were like trying to, because there was some licensing things and new ownership of like stuff, so they'd switched it over. But that was so good, they wanted to kind of keep that Spider-Man going. That's where that.
Yeah, and when I was actually looking at it too, I didn't know, but he did the video game Marvel Heroes. He did the voice in that, and then he also did the Disney Infinity Spider-Man voices for the video games. So I didn't know that, nice. So I thought that was interesting as well. So I had number 5. Number 4, this was one I threw in, and after tonight, I'm glad I put him on here because I really enjoyed his portrayal, even though it's so off the wall, as I put Jake Johnson.
Yes.
I like Jake Johnson's Peter Parker. I know the bathrobe and sweatpants thing it's annoying.
It's super annoying.
But his, like, the whole training Miles Morales thing and all that, and like it really like solidified in the new movie too, because he talks about like, I wouldn't be where I'm at in my life if it wasn't for you, to talking to Miles and stuff. And so I really like Jake Johnson's portrayal. I like Jake Johnson anyway. I think he's hilarious.
Yeah.
And I like the way he plays kind of this off the wall, kind of almost quirky Peter Parker. And I think it works, because you basically, you go from the beginning of that movie, you get Chris Pine's All-American Hero, Peter Parker. Yeah. And then you get Jake Johnson's like fuck up Peter Parker. And it's
pizza and beer belly.
Yes. Yeah. Parker. And so I like that. I like that portrayal. So
I love that. I love that.
So you know who my top 3 are going to be. Okay, so
Yeah, I
it's
did
our
have him in there.
it's our movie Spider-Man. When I wrote this list, I moved them. They were all got moved around. This evolved multiple times this week after we decided we were doing this one. I sent you a picture today, and it's the horse.
Yeah, yeah, it was great.
You ever see like the horse drawings, and like it starts off real
Hmm.
crappy, and then it's fire, right? And this one's
Yeah.
all fire. It's all fire, and it's Miles, and it's Tom Holland, it's Andrew Garfield's Tobey Maguire.
Hmm.
I feel very blessed with the Spider-Man that we've been given for big screen movies. Very much so. Like I feel like we've been blessed with the Batmans we've been given. You and I had this discussion, I think, after we recorded last week, where it was like Christian Bale and Michael Keaton are like 1A and 1B. Like
Hmm.
it's almost like, what day is it? Like today, I think Christian Bale's better. Like today, I
Yeah,
think Michael
yeah.
Keaton's better. And that's kind of the way I am with Spider-Man. So it took me a while to solidify my top three. And so this is evolved multiple times.
Hmm.
At number three, I have Tom Holland. And I have Tom Holland at number three because of the reasons that you said. Okay. And that's what I wanted to talk about when you shushed me, was that I understand your point. We got glimpses of Tom Holland as the neighborhood Spider-Man in Homecoming, when he like has to fight the Vulture at the end. He's on his own. Like he's, you know, Tony
Yeah.
Stark's abandoned him, taking the suit away. He's like in his sweatpants. He's in his original homemade suit. I like the segment where he's at in Captain America Civil War. I like all of that, where it builds up to Spider-Man, where he's this goofy, quirky teenage kid. He gets recruited. Here's this fancy ass suit, like all that, and they explain that at the beginning of Homecoming. I like Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I'm with you. I want to see more. I want him. I want that next movie as the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, where it's just him
Yeah.
as Spider-Man. I would
Yeah.
love to see, because they like putting in other characters in these movies, right? That's obvious. Obviously he had Iron Man, right, at the
Hmm.
beginning. Iron Man's dead. Doctor Strange, right, in the No Way Home, which was okay. I liked it.
Hmm.
I like Benedict as Doctor Strange. Don't get me wrong. I think he was a good casting decision for that character.
Yeah.
I would love to see the next Spider-Man be about Spider-Man with maybe a cameo from Charlie Cox's Daredevil. I would love that so much. This like heroes on the street in New York.
Yes.
That would be fantastic, because that's what I think Spider-Man and Daredevil, like I related with them so much when I read comic books as a kid, because they were so like fighting these guys in the neighborhood. Now, Spider-Man is not Daredevil. Daredevil is basically a guy that has enhanced senses, right? Like
Hmm.
that's who Daredevil is. Spider-Man has like one of the strongest characters Marvel has.
Yeah.
He's all that. So him becoming like what you said, like he evolved into this Avenger and like these super suits and all that, because Spider-Man grew up and evolved into that. That's because
Yeah.
he's so powerful as a character. So Tom Holland's number three.
I agree with I if there was going to be another character with him, that character makes the most sense. One, because
Mm-hmm.
that version of Daredevil was freaking awesome. But two, that superhero is in New York, Hell's Kitchen, and
Mm-hmm.
he's in a lot of
Spider-Man's
Spider-Man
comics.
stuff already. Like he's in
Mm-hmm.
his comics, he's in his video
Well, I think
games,
that's
he's
why
in
everybody, like when we talked about Kingpin, like he's a Daredevil villain. Well, it's because
he's in
he's
the
in New
same city.
York. It's
Yeah.
it's that's
Yeah.
how it is. That those are the two guys that are fighting him all the time.
Yeah. So I think that would actually I would watch that. I would totally watch it.
So number one and number two, I'm going to give you at the same time, and this is why, because it's close. And I like Toby had the better movies. He's number two. Andrew Garfield's number one.
Oh, yes.
Andrew Garfield
Yes.
portrayed Spider-Man better than anybody else on the big screen as Peter Parker. He portrayed that character almost to perfection. Like when we talk about Batman, we're like, yeah, Christian Bale was great Bruce Wayne. He was great Batman, and when we talked about Robert Pattinson, we were like, he was great Batman. He wasn't Bruce Wayne at all.
Yeah.
Andrew Garfield was Peter Parker. Like he
Mhm.
is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like everything you said when you had him at number three, and you were talking about how you thought you were going to get crap because you had him at number three. I had him at number one.
Well, I
Like,
did say he like I so it's I love that you won. I love that you have Matt your number one. He was the one that like I'm like I know I'm going to get a lot of crap. I want to put him at number one. in terms of like movie Spider-Man, he does the character like you
The
said.
best.
He is Spider-Man. So
His
um
problem, his problem was his two movies were the worst.
yeah.
Other than Toby's third movie, but Toby's first two movies are great. Like we've
Mm-hmm.
talked about, Spider-Man 2 is epic. It's one of the greatest movies, comic book movies ever. His origin story movie, like you just talked about, like you bought that he was a skinny ass nerd that got
Yeah.
these powers, and now all of a sudden he's changing, he's evolving, and Toby does a great job of handling like the should I be Spider-Man, should I not? Do I want to deal with this
Yes.
responsibility? Like the
Yes.
throwing away the costume, like all Toby was like nailed that. Everything about
Yeah.
that as the character. But Andrew Garfield, like you said, the emotional toll, like the ending of Amazing Spider-Man 2, like it's not a great movie. That ending where she dies is just, it's gut wrenching. You
Yes.
believe in your heart that he is now broken.
Broken.
And as
Yes.
shitty as that scene with Paul Giamatti is at the end, but when he shows back up and that little kid's like ready to fight Rhino on his own because of what Spider-Man means, Andrew
And he
Garfield,
just
like,
rubs
man,
his head, and yeah, he
as excited
agreed.
as when No Way Home came out and they were, they to talk to Toby, are you in the new Spider-Man? He talked to Andrew Garfield because Andrew Garfield was making, I think that was when like his Netflix movie that he was nominated for a bunch of awards for, the one where he played the guy that wrote Rent. You know what I'm talking about? Was it
Yeah.
called Click
Yep.
Click
Yep.
Click Click Boom? Is that what it was called? I
I'm
think
not
so.
sure, but I know what you're talking about.
He was doing like press junket for them, like, hey, are you in the new Spider-Man? And he's like, no, I'm not. I wish I was. I'm not. Nobody's called me. He did. That was awesome because
Mm-hmm.
I was more excited to see him than I was Tobey Maguire because Andrew Garfield was the best Spider-Man. Even
I
though
love that.
if I ranked the Spider-Man movies, it's
This
Tobey
would be
Maguire's
last.
Tobey Maguire's third movie would be last.
Yeah.
And then it would be the two Amazing Spider-Man movies. Like
Yeah.
that's where they would rank him out of all
Yeah.
those live action movies. So he was dealt. We talked about this. Like I feel like Val Kilmer wasn't a bad Batman, but that movie wasn't as good. Like
Yeah, that's a good point.
if Val Kilmer would
That's a
have been
good
in a
point.
better Batman movie, would he be portrayed better? Like
Yeah.
Michael Keaton's two Batman movies were perfect, almost.
Mm-hmm.
Christian Bale's three Batman movies were almost perfect. The
Mm-hmm.
second one might be.
Yeah.
That's where I think Andrew Garfield didn't get a fair shake.
Dude, yes. I that's like I wish they would let him keep going. Like I wish they didn't
But
pull the
they,
rug out from under him.
they can.
Um
If they want to, they can.
and they should. They
They've opened
should.
that window.
I thought I was going to want to kill you with this list, and now
Mm-mm.
I know now why we're friends, because I talk about those amazing spy. I mean, I know like you were just saying that the movies aren't good themselves, but because of like how good Andrew Garfield is at playing Spider-Man, I really like those movies. Number two, especially. I know a lot of people don't like the Electro character, but I actually thought
I
that
didn't like. I thought it was badly done because of the way Electro's written in the comics is totally different than he is in that movie, and it's bad.
see, I just thought like his Electro in the comics and like the cartoon, he's this week's villain or whatever they said in the new Spider. Like he
Yeah,
just is boring, and I felt like this was a cool. Like there's ways to take a villain and try to do something totally different and original where it works, and there's a way to try to do something totally different and original and it doesn't work. And
yep,
both in one movie, Paul Giamatti's Rhino,
mm-hmm.
that let's do a mechanized Rhino.
Yep.
No, doesn't work. I actually really liked the Jamie Foxx one. I liked how they had kind of the like dubstep reverb kind of music vibe with him. Clearly they thought he was good enough or cool enough to put him in kind of the newer movies, right?
Well,
Like
they
he was
made him.
in the new
They
movies. So
made him a lot cooler.
you
He
well
looks.
go
He
back and
looks.
watch the movie then.
Oh, but I
Oh,
just
I
want
see what you're saying. Like just in like visually what he
yeah,
looked like.
yeah. They made him look a lot cooler. Like they made him look. There's even a joke where the lizard's like, "Why aren't you blue anymore?" And then like it just
Yeah,
they
yeah,
cut away, like they make like a little inside joke of it, like because it was so
yeah,
dumb that he looked blue.
yeah.
A Dane DeHaan's Green Goblin is a completely throwaway character. I mean,
Oh,
yeah,
horrible. I
he
was
killed.
just about to say that. I was just about to say he's probably next to Topher Grace. He's probably like one of the worst characters.
It's pretty.
That Green Goblin
It
was
was pretty
terrible.
bad.
His hair, he was
Oh,
he needs to just stick to that one indie superhero movie that
Chronicle.
we love so much, Chronicle.
That was good.
Man, he was good. Which I guess makes sense why they would want to make him Harry
Yeah,
Osborn because
I didn't have a
character
problem with him as Harry Osborn at all. I didn't like the Goblin, and
yeah,
I don't know why you had the Green Goblin in Tobey Maguire's first movie, right? You have flashbacks of him in the second movie. He becomes the Green Goblin in the third movie. So you're going to reboot the franchise with Andrew Garfield, and then the second movie you're going to bring back the Green Goblin. Like,
yeah, yes.
if
That's why I said he's in every. It's his story arc
it's
is in
stupid,
everything.
it's like
Yes.
you look at like superhero rogues galleries, right? Like we could all probably agree Batman is the best,
Mhm.
right? Spider-Man has a pretty awesome rogues gallery,
Yeah,
like especially at the top. You get
yeah.
kind of when you get to
He's number two for sure.
when you get to the
Batman then Spider Man.
I agree. When you get to the vultures and the electros and the blizzards and like they all they're all around the same level.
Yeah, they all meld together.
They kind of do. I think like Doc Ock and Norman Osborn are at the top, and then they kind of just meld together. Venom's obviously the best. We both agreed to that. And then they all kind of meld together. Like I even Mysterio, like I know he's kind of up there. Scorpion, they all Craven the Hunter is kind of his own deal, but they all kind of
Yeah, yeah,
meld
yeah.
together. Why are you using the Green Goblin again? Like, I mean, that's what I'm getting
Yeah.
at. Like, why are you using him again? This
When you have all that at your fingertips.
this isn't Batman and the Joker. Spider-Man and the Green Goblin are not Batman and the Joker. It's not the same, right?
Yeah.
There was a lot of like, why are we using the Joker so much? That's different.
Yeah.
It's like Superman and Lex Luthor. Like, Lex Luthor has to be a part of a Superman story in somewhere in there, right?
I'll give credit to Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies because they did go with the Vulture as like that first bad guy, which has not been in any movies at all.
Right.
He technically was in the Sam Raimi universe, but it was the video game. It was
Mhm.
Spider-Man 1, the video game.
Mm-hmm.
But like he wasn't in those movies. And then Mysterio obviously has not been in a movie either.
Mm-hmm.
I do think they did a good job with Mysterio taking kind of a storyline that's in the 1990s cartoon and made it like cool and put it in the movie. So I'll give them that. And they made him way cooler in the show. Did you watch the 89 X-Men cartoon?
Yes.
If you love that X-Men cartoon, you would love, actually, I don't know, it was 89. I don't know. I think it's sooner than that, or like 90 something. Because they're doing a remake of it.
Yeah, they're doing a sequel series. It's a sequel.
Yes. So if you liked that, they're the same because they did a lot of crossovers. In the Spider-Man, they do a lot of Avengers and X-Men. But like, man, honestly, man, you got to go back and watch some episodes of the animated series Spider-Man because it's freaking good.
And that was the thing. Like, again, this is back to our age. Like, I was watching X-Men, Batman the animated series. Then like by the time I think Spider-Man came on, like you said, I think it was 94, 95.
Yeah.
By that time,
you had moved on.
I'm watching Cinemax on Friday nights, in the basement.
Gross.
We called it Skinemax.
Gross. And look at you now, 12 a.m. and back in your basement on a Friday night. Like
I might have the internet on my phone. So.
Okay, well, honestly, I thought this was going to be a war. Maybe I went into it a little bit more aggressive with.
You did. You went in aggressive.
I texted you, was like, I have the Last Jedi, like passion about kind of. And it just so happened that as I was scrolling YouTube, of course, like my phone reads our minds and hears our words, and so like there was like a quick short of a top 5 Spider-Man, and this like 16-year-old narrator was like, obviously Tom Holland is the number one Spider-Man, but let's look at some of the other Spider-Mans. And I was
No,
like, what?
listen,
Get out of here.
this goes back to what I said at the beginning when I gave you my top 3. They're not, none of those 3 are bad. We didn't have a bad Spider-Man. They cast them very well, all 3. Like the
For
thing that
sure.
Andrew Garfield portrayed Spider-Man the best. Tobey Maguire was a great Spider-Man. Everybody bought it. Like he was
Mhm.
great. The thing that Tom Holland does is Tom Holland plays that young Spider-Man. He has that like innocent persona, and he's got that background. He can do all those flips and stuff on his own. Like he's a
Yeah.
like acrobat, like dancer, like he was doing Billy Elliot when he was a freaking kid.
Yeah.
That's Tom Holland. You said this. Could Tom Holland be at the top of this list someday? Yeah, he could. There's no doubt about it. Like it's a possibility. He's made 3 movies. His 3 movies versus the Tobey Maguire 3 movies. Tom Holland's got the better 3 movies overall because they're all good,
Mhm.
right? We talked about that third movie shit the bed so hard. Andrew Garfield had 2 not great movies. Like, listen, they're not bad. You and I had this discussion a long time ago where you even said, you're like, go back and watch them. And I did. This was before No Way Home came out. I said I wanted to watch all of them because I know these 2 guys are going to be in this movie. I don't care what anybody says.
Mhm.
I went back and I watched all the Spider-Mans. Both Amazing Spider-Man movies I enjoy. They're the 2 out of the 3 worst. Like
Yeah.
we've gone over that, but Tom Holland could be there.
He could. I like they did the high school Spider-Man because for a long part of Spider-Man's comic book world, like he's a high school kid. And so that like the Josh Keaton 2008 Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon show, he is a high schooler, like trying out for the football team and like trying to not be Spider-Man, like the world's greatest athlete, and like making the football team and not like. So that's the one thing about the Tom Holland thing that I like. But the thing that I hated about it was that they had him in that age, but then they literally skipped like his whole career to like the last part. It's like we started at the end, at the beginning.
You're right. I'm
Which
not
was
disagreeing with what you're saying. I think with what Marvel's plan was, they because of where they introduced him,
yeah,
and that has to do with studios and rights more than anything. If Marvel
yeah,
had the rights to Spider-Man in 2010, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man,
yeah,
and then now we have the seasoned vet in Infinity
doing
War.
all the same stuff. Yeah,
Correct. And then we buy it because that's who Spider-Man is. Sony had the rights. They didn't want to share them. Marvel signed this deal with them. They made a deal with Sony. Said,
yeah,
"Listen, we want him. We want him in the universe. He's too important. Let's make this movie. You guys get all the money." Basically, is what they said because we want
yeah.
Spider-Man. We fund it together. We get our money back. You get the profits. Deal. Let's do it.
Yeah.
We all get Spider-Man.
That like obviously the newest Tom Holland Spider-Man movie was like it. Everyone loved it because it brought back Toby, it brought back Andrew. That was awesome. But why I liked that way more than any of the other Tom Holland one was because just like the movie we watched tonight, the Across the Spider-Verse, he finally had like his canon moment where like he lost Mary Jane, and that was the loss. Like Spider-Man is someone who carries grief and loss on his shoulders, and that he finally had that.
He loses Aunt May.
That's what I meant. Who did I say?
You said Mary Jane. He does lose her at the end too. He loses her at the end too, just in a different way.
For sure. I meant when he loses Aunt May, like when
he gets his Uncle Ben moment.
Yes, he gets his canon moment. Where like where it's not a joke anymore. It's not fun anymore. It's like now people have died, and he like all that sets in, and that's what brings the other Spider-Man close to him because it's like, yeah, bro, like.
And he's like, I'm gonna kill the Green Goblin because he took everything away from me. And
but
he has his I can't do that. I'm Spider-Man moment. And Tobey Maguire gets him there. In that
Yep,
scene where he's about to stab Willem Dafoe, and Tobey Maguire
for
he
sure.
grabs that glider and stares
Hmm.
at him. Doesn't have to say a word, just the way he looks at him. And Tom Holland's like, I'm Spider-Man. I can't. This is not who I am.
Yeah. Great point. Way to loop back to what we talked about earlier. Also, talking about a moment or a scene without talking, when Andrew Garfield saves Mary Jane and
Oh
like
yeah.
as she's falling, and we all knew like this happened to him before where he lost
Mhm.
Gwen, and he saves her, and it's like a big deal to him.
And
No one has to say
she's like,
anything.
oh, thank you so much. And he's just like, just you can just see it in his
Yeah,
face.
like
Yeah.
it crushes him. Like, God, that was awesome.
That's and
Um,
that those moments, like those are the moments. That's why I like that movie so much. It's that
yeah,
stuff. It's how Marvel does such a great job. And then again, we talk about Endgame, we talk about Infinity War. Like they do such a great job of like tying everything back together and what it
mhm.
means emotionally to those characters. Like, yeah, people go see these and they're just like, yeah, Spider-Man's swinging around, beating people up. Great. Like, but those are characters that they mean something to people like us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and like all of those things said, I loved those about the movie, and obviously that was a big reason why I liked the movie. But like that was the one movie that where I walked out was like the first time that I got excited about Tom Holland Spider Man, because I was
Mhm.
like, that like we finally saw him in like the bright red and blue costume. He was swinging through New York City. Like as terrible as it sounds to be happy to see someone in a dingy apartment with no friends and no people, like
Mhm.
I was just happy to see like that's the Spider-Man that we all know. That's the Peter Parker we all know.
Mhm.
And now all the rest of it makes sense,
Mhm.
that they got to have him in their Avenger movies and do all that stuff, but they still went back to go, but we're still going to do the right Spider-Man. I don't know if
Yeah,
they're actually going to do movies of it like that, but they said it in a way that I felt like,
I
oh,
think they will.
cool, we're
I
still
think they
getting the
will.
right one.
Yeah, I think they
So,
will.
anyways, fun episode.